Welcome to the show. It is me, your girl, Labora Lee, and welcome to our edition of Hood History. Um, I get very excited about Hood History because it's a chance for me to explore something that I'm very passionate about, which is history. And today's show, I am very excited about sharing this particular story because it's one of my favorite stories to share. This particular episode, let's just say we're in 1812, and it's time to talk about the war, and I'm very happy to talk about it. So, one of the reasons why I'm very happy to talk about the war is because that war took place here as in Baltimore as well. And y'all know I'm big on letting y'all know I'm from Baltimore. So it's a lot to unpack about this story. But let's go back to June 18th, 1812. This is where the war began, and it lasted until February the 17th, 1815. But let's talk about why the war started. So the conflict was fought between the United States and Great Britain, right? Basically, they say it was violations over maritime rights, which, in the sea, it was a lot going on back in those times. You had pirates, you had all kinds of things. I told y'all that in the last episode of Hood History. Pirates was running rapid in these times, right? So, it ended with an exchange of the ratification of the Treaty of Gaunt. What is the Treaty of Gaunt? I can't tell you the story without explaining what the Treaty of Gaunt is. So the Treaty of Gaunt was put together in December the 24th, 1814, right? It's an agreement that was made in Belgium between Great Britain and the United States of America to end the War of 1812. On the general basis that the status quo antebellum, because this is the time we're in, maintaining the pre-war conditions, because the military position for each side for so well balanced, neither the country could obtain desired concessions. So neither one of them could be like, you know what, we all getting what we wanted, right? That didn't happen like that. So, major causes of the war. The tensions that caused the war in 1812 arose from the French Revolutionary War. Didn't even start with us. It started with what was going on over there. And, at this time, you got the also the Napoleon Wars, where he was going through and he was ravaging everything. He wanted it all. He wanted England too, but he wanted Russia. He wanted Poland. He wanted all the countries that he could get his hands on, as usually emperors and dictators do, right? That's common. So the French Revolutionary War was started in 1792, and it lasted until 1799. The Napoleonic War started in 1799 and lasted till 1815. So it was a lot going on at the time. But anyway, during this constant conflict between France and Britain and America, America, here we come, because this is what our country does sometimes. America's interests were injured by each of the two countries' endeavors to block the United States from trading with one another. So basically, remember, we're still a fresh country. Like, things are fresh, things are popping. It's the hustle and bustle of trying to figure out how we going to make this country pop. What are we going to make this country into? And then we have two, at the time, superpowers saying that, no, you can't trade with them. And then, no, you can't trade with them. So this is what's going on at the time, right? So, American shipping initially prospered from the trade with the French and the Spanish empires. Although the British countered the U.S. claim that free ships make for free goods, with the belated enforcement of a so-called rule of 1756, trade not permitted in peacetime would not be allowed in wartime. So if you didn't trade in peacetime, then you weren't going to trade in wartime. It's just basically what they're saying. That's just what it is. Like, so if you didn't trade with these countries at the time that everybody's at peace, then you can't trade with these countries at the time where everybody is at war. Which is like, dude, this is my country. I do what I want. But whatever. That's how I would have carried it anyway. So the Royal Navy, let me hold this. The Royal Navy did enforce the Act of 1793. They enforced it from 1793 to 1794, especially in the Caribbean Sea, before signing the Jade Treaty in November. On November 19th, 1974, under the primary terms. So under the terms of the treaty, America's maritime commerce, the ships, because I told you back then we were big on ships. Like, it was all about the ships. There wasn't no airplanes and things of that nature. It was all about the ships. So, the American maritime commerce was given trading privileges in England and the British East Indies. Britain agreed to evacuate forts still held by in the Northwest Territories by June 1796. And the Mississippi River, that river we hear about so much, was declared freely open to both countries, to the United States, to England, right? So it was highly unpopular, and the United States was one of the rallying points that used pro-French Republicans, led by Thomas Jefferson, because he was all in the mix. Thomas Jefferson was in some of everything. I don't think y'all know. We're going to talk about him one day, too, and his little babies. And then James Madison, in wrestling power from pro-British Federalists, led by George Washington and John Adams. Now, after Jefferson became the president, because I told y'all he all up in this. After he became the president in 1801, relations between Britain slowly deteriorated, and systematic enforcement of the rule of 1756 resumed after 1805, which became a troubling component in everything, because it's a troubling development. You feel me? The decisive British naval victory at the Battle of Trafalgar in October the 21st, 1805. This is when this battle went down. The efforts of the British to blockade the French ports prompted the French Emperor Napoleon to cut off the Britain from the European and American trade. So they played with Napoleon. Napoleon said, I got something for you real quick, because I'm not the one. Napoleon was something else. He had that short man complex. He was out here just living it up. So I just wanted to give you an idea of what was going on and why everything started taking place. That's a very important place to be at, because, many don't understand how that war happened. But basically, Britain, France, and America were going through their whole little, I'd like to say they was probably going through, all three of them had, they were synced up in their periods, and they all had PMS at the same time. And they like, you know what, I'm tired of this. And they, they went to war. So during the war, Britain and England, the British tried to capture Baltimore. I'm keeping it moving because there was a lot going on. There was a couple of areas that were involved, but y'all know I like to bring it back to Baltimore always, because there's an explanation for why the city is the way it is. And I don't think anybody wants to admit that that's why it is how it is. But anyway, so during the War of 1812, the British tried to capture Baltimore. U.S. forces Tag nabbit, y'all. I'm coming. Give me 1 second. We having technical difficulties again. But yeah, U.S. forces was not here to play. Hold on. Gotta get this together. Let me do a quick commercial break while I fix this. I'll be right back. What a time to be alive. I repeat, what a time to be alive. Did you know that you could get fresh ingredients along with beautiful recipes delivered to your door? Did you know that? Wow, you can get 21 free meals plus free shipping and 3 free gifts when you use the code HelloFresh21. The link is in the description. Again, use the code HelloFresh21 to get 21 free meals plus free shipping plus 3 free gifts. I'm telling you. It's time to get healthy, y'all. Alright, so I'm back. So basically now we're at the point where they like, nah, we get ready to attack y'all. We tired of this. So they came to Baltimore. Because at this time, it's also something to understand about what was going on, why, how they got to Baltimore. Now, because it's a lot to discuss, okay? So, in the melee, I told y'all it was a lot going on. A lot of people were upset and all that good stuff. And then, I think all of the turmoil kind of happened because, I don't want to say because of him, but yeah, because of him. Because Thomas Jefferson was kind of like, he was kind of like stubborn in a way. Not like he was diplomatic, a slave owner, but very stubborn. You feel me? So, like I said, during the War of 1812, the British tried to capture Baltimore. The U.S. forces successful defense in September. It was September the 13th through the 14th of 1814, though, of nearby Fort McHenry. If you've ever been to Baltimore, this is one of our main attractions. Fort McHenry. It is a fort, and it is off of our inner harbor. You can see it. Like, actually, you can, like, if you live in the city, you can walk to it. It's just like a big ass hill that you can just go up on, but it goes out to the sea. It goes out to the inner harbor, right? So, so they try to attack Fort McHenry, and now it's a national monument. I just told you that, and a historic shrine. It was the inspiration for Francis Scott Key's Star Spangled Banner. We're gonna get to that too. I'm gonna fill you in. I told you it's one of my favorite stories. So it's not a story, it's history, but one of my favorite stories. So June 18th, 1812, James Madison signed a declaration of war between the United States and Great Britain. Yeah, it was serious. They was ready for war. They were lunatics. So he signs the declaration of war. Many residents of Maryland, especially in Baltimore, the largest city in the state, and the third in the nation, as well as one of the nation's leading ports, because this is a port town. I told y'all it's all about shipping everything, shipping goods. So anyway, they welcomed the news. They were happy about it. They like, what? We going to war? All right, we ready. So the trade port in Baltimore had been greatly curtailed since the trade embargoes with Great Britain and France enacted by the President Jefferson and then James Madison. During the rest of 1812 into 1813, trade boomed. Like, the trade system was booming in Baltimore. There was this was helped by the growing list of private ships going out to seize British merchant ships. Again, the pirates. Y'all think pirates is just some made up stuff. They were real. Confiscating the cargo, then returning to port, then auctioning it off whenever whatever they had seized or whatever, keeping the profits. These privateers had an easy time of it until March 1813. It was at this time that the fleet of British warships, commanded by Rear Admiral George Cockburn, sailed into the Chesapeake Bay. After blockading the USS Constellation in Norfolk, Virginia. Now, the USS Constellation sits in the harbor here in Baltimore, as of today. You could go visit it. It's a nice place to go to for educational purposes. It's good to take your kids there so they can get kind of like some understanding. And you never know, you might take your kid there and they may find a passion like I did for history. That was part of my finding my passion for history. But anyway, so Cockburn's fleet headed into north into Maryland, capturing Baltimore privateers coming out of the bay. Admiral Cockburn proceeded to attack small towns along Maryland's eastern shore. The towns of now it's Elkton, Georgetown, and Harry de Grace, which is they're still there, are attacked and burned to the ground. St. Michael's was attacked twice, but managed to keep the British keep them at bay, keep them from, attacking them. Man, it was serious. Like, it was a serious thing. It was going down. So, where are we? So we talked about, okay. So I want to get us back on one accord. So yeah, they stopped them. He attacked St. Michael's twice, but they managed to keep the British from entering the town. And then in April, Cockburn sailed up to the Patapsco River within sight of Fort McHenry. Now, throughout the summer, the British forces raided farms and livestock and crops and stuff like that. They were just like, they're going to need to submit because we're taking their supplies. The British paid them for hats they took in British pounds, which was like, what are we going to do with that? Or promissory notes. If the firearm was found in the house and all of the outbuilding would be set on fire. It would be burnt. They would just, and it was just gone. The reason for this was that the white males between 18 and 45 were required by law to enroll in the state militia. So they knew what they was doing. If we cut them off, cut them off. We got them. We're going to handle our business. We're going to cut them at the track, right? So late in the evening of Saturday, September the 10th, 1814, warships of the British Royal Navy were sighted at the mouth of Patapsco River, because it all goes down at the Patapsco River. It all goes down at the Patapsco River. Hold on. Because I got to get my stuff together. I don't know why I keep just jumping like that. That's weird. But let's do this. Okay, so they at the Patapsco River. It's get ready to go down. Everybody's scared. Everybody's like, oh no, they coming to get us. Within that time, at least, hold on, they mad about, oh my gosh, they coming to get us. They coming. Oh no, hold on, y'all. I got my notes, and I got to make sure that everything's in order. So, Cockburn is already, he done did what he's going to do. He in the Patapsco River. This is not the first time His Majesty's Navy had been this close to Baltimore either, by the way. In April of 1813, the British warships had appeared within the sight of the city and sailed away. But in 1814, this was different. It was a whole different scenario. 3 weeks earlier, a red glow from the burning public buildings of Washington City, Washington, D.C., as we know it today, were clearly visible in sight in the sky of Baltimore. Because if you know anything about Baltimore and Washington, D.C., neither one of them are far apart. They're pretty close in proximity. It takes about a half an hour to 45 minutes to get to D.C. from Baltimore. So, yeah. So they could see what was going down because they was burning it up in D.C. They had burned. This is the year that they set the White House on fire, right? This is where you hear the stories about Dolly going in there and saving the picture of George Washington because she was like, he was our first president. It's very important. We need to get this portrait out of here. And she takes it out the frame, rolls it up, wraps it out, and ships it out the White House so it could be saved. All right. So now that you got that little tea, where we at now? So Cities DC is on fire with the size of British forces. It seems certain that their city, the third largest city in the nation, one of the leading ports, would be next on the target list. Because it's always a list. You can check it off. They coming. Though the first alarms were sounded in Baltimore on the night of September the 10th, by late Sunday morning, all of the residents, everybody, because that's how we get down. If you think you coming here and you attacking us, you got another thing coming. A whole another thing coming. But all the residents of the city were everybody like, what? No, it's not going down. They were aware that the enemies were at the mouth of the Patapsco River. The British fleet of 55 ships under the command of Vice Admiral Sir Alex Cochrane would be seen maneuvering back and forth within the site of Federal Hill and Fells Point, which is all down in the harbor. Now, at the time, Fells Point was not a part of Baltimore City. I don't know, but we'll get to that later. So what led up to the battle? They was ready. They were ready. So let's get into it. So now they creeping up. They trying to get to Hampstead Hill and Fort McHenry under the direction of General Sam Smith. The citizens, because they just like, no, we ain't having it. Like, y'all ain't gonna keep coming here playing with us like we some joke or something. So under the direction of Major General Sam Smith, the citizens of Baltimore had spent a lot of time preparing. So hold on. Yeah, they was ready. So yeah, Sam Smith came along. The citizens of Baltimore had spent the last three weeks preparing the defenses for the British attack because they knew they were coming. Smith was also the commander of the military forces defending the city. The city was divided into 4 zones, with each zone alternating days working on the city's defenses. Every citizen, regardless of age, regardless of sex, race, including freed African Americans and enslaved workers, because I told you this city is big on having those, but they all contributed to the defense of the city. Now, Baltimore's main defense position was in the middle of the city at Hampstead Hill. Today, if you came here today, Hampstead Hill would be Patterson Park. All right, so if you ever come here and where's Hampstead Hill, know that it's called Patterson Park now. Now, it had been 3 weeks from the time that the British had left Washington, D.C. until they had appeared at the Patapsco River. I can't even get that out. Within that time, though, it was going down. We was getting ready. We was like, nah, yo, you're not getting ready. No, you're not coming in here doing crazy stuff. So anyway, it had been 3 weeks, and the British had left Washington City, but now it's Washington, D.C., until they had appeared at Patapsco River. Within that time, the citizens of Baltimore had built over 1.5 miles of well-placed entrenchments. No, you're not just coming up in here. You're going to have to fight to get up in here because that's how we get down. So Maryland, Washington City, and Virginia and Pennsylvania arrived to the defense of Baltimore because they was like, no, that's a big port city for us. Sailors and Marines under the command of Maryland Native Commander John Rogers arrived from Philadelphia Navy Yard 2 weeks earlier to help assist in Washington's defense. Now they were added to assist the defense of Baltimore with the main base at Hampstead Hill. An estimated 15,000 to 20,000 soldiers with 60 cannons were now ready to fight. They ready for war. They tired of the mess. They tired of it. I would be tired too. Like, listen, you're going to come in here bullying us. So in mid-afternoon of September 11th, oh my gosh, that's so weird. The 3rd Brigade of Maryland's militia, made up of 8 regiments from the city marched from Baltimore to meet the British. The commanders, they were commanded by Brigadier General John Stricker Street, John Stricker, and the 3rd Brigade numbered in 4,000 men, including troops from Pennsylvania and Western Maryland, and they would have the first encounter with the British at the place of North Point. So now, let's get into it. I just wanted to give you like a little synopsis of what was going on at that time. 1812 was crazy. It was crazy. So, now, let's get into the tea, because we get ready to move it along to, the whole Star Spangled Banner and all that good stuff. But, so the negotiations for Dr. Beans, as General Stricker and the 3rd Brigade were retreating from the Battle of North Point because it was getting hectic over there, things was happening, and they like, dang, we losing control. Let's get out of here, because that's how I go. Like, we gotta go. Let's get out of here. So they retreated during the evening of September the 12th, 1814. The British naval ships out on the Patapsco, hold on, because it was going down. The British naval ships out on the Patapsco River were moving into position for an attack of Fort McHenry. So now they moving in like, all right, they retreating, so now we can do some things. The Star Fort, because if you don't know, Fort McHenry is in the shape of a star, but the Star Fort was the last main obstacle into Baltimore. You got to get past there to get in here if you coming from the sea. Once the fort was destroyed, the ships would sail into the city, empty the warehouses, and set the city on fire as they left, because they was all about setting cities on fire. I don't know what that was, but they were all about setting cities on fire back then. Hey, I guess they figured if we set it on fire, it's not here anymore, we could do what we want to do. So among the ships of the British fleet was an American package ship that had left Baltimore a week ago. It was on a mission to secure the release of American prisoner Dr. William Beans. It's crazy because his situation went from hospitality to being a hostage, basically. So 3 weeks earlier, the British, of course, it's the British, were marching towards Washington City, right? Let's keep it moving. They were marching and marching and marching and marching because, they were marching towards Washington City. Like I said, hold on, let me get to where I need to go. Let me make sure this is the right one, the right page or whatever. But they marching. So what happens is Dr. Beans had hosted General Ross, Admiral Cockburn, and the other British officers at his house in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. Yeah, Maryland is thick in this war. We thick. So the elderly Beans was a prominent local physician who the British believed was sympathetic to them, to their cause, and them taking back over the United States, right? Before leaving for Washington City, Beans had promised Ross and Cockburn that he would not interfere with British military operations. He promised them. They like, cool, like, all right, good. So we cool. Everybody cool here. However, the British Army marched back to their ships after they burnt Washington, D.C., and Dr. Beans took part in helping to round up some of the stragglers who got left behind or, who had issues during this time because there was a lot going on. A lot of people were like, oh, I don't know where to go. Oh, my gosh. So when hearing this, Ross was furious and he ordered Beans brought to the fleet. Ross intended to send him to Halifax, Virginia, but put him on trial for his duplicity in the war. Him getting all involved in mess, he was like, no, we're going to put him on trial. Words of the doctor's plight had spread throughout Southern Maryland. Lawyer Francis Scott Key, know y'all heard about him in the history books, was an acquaintance of Dr. Bean, and he went to the Octagon City, Washington, D.C., as we know it today, but back then it was Washington City, to meet with President Madison, seeking authorization to negotiate with the British to secure Dr. Bain's release. Madison approved, telling Key that he could go into Baltimore to meet with the U.S. prisoner of war exchange agent John S. Skinner. But before leaving to meet with Skinner, Key went to Bladensburg, where the battle had been fought, to open the way for the British to enter the capital. At the location, Key found the American doctors. Oh my gosh, they was just like, no, and y'all ain't going to hell either. You gonna you gonna be out here. No, you're not getting no help. But so he went there. He found the American doctors who had been treating wounded British soldiers to return to the fleet. So they can't come back now. Key announced that he was going to meet the British fleet and asked if anyone had letters for home. After receiving a sack of letters, Key left for Baltimore and met with Skinner. Arriving in Baltimore at Bowley's Wharf at the base of South Street, Skinner and Key boarded a local mail package ship called the President, which was owned by the Ferguson brothers. On September the 5th, they sailed to meet the British fleet. So now they on their way. It's going down. It's popping. They like, we get ready to get them out of here. Right? The next day, off of the Patuxent River, Skinner and Key sighted HMS Royal Oak and learned that Dr. Baines was aboard the Admiral Cochrane's command ship, and the HMS Tonnet, the 80-gun ship, was further down the bay. So Key gave the sack of letters from the British prisoners to one of the smaller, faster ships to relay them to General Ross, who was also on the Tonnet. On September the 7th, the ship arrived to meet with these fleets. Skinner and Key were brought aboard, where they were greeted by the Admiral Cochrane. Then they realized an attack on Baltimore was being planned before Skinner could mention the purpose of the visit. Key told Cochrane they were there for the release of Dr. Baines. Cochrane spoke very harshly, like he was laying them out. He was like, no, y'all not taking Dr. Baines. Dr. Baines is staying right here where he is. And the other British officers did not think he should be released. So it was a lot of turmoil on the ship. They like, no, he ain't going nowhere. He's staying right here, and ain't nothing y'all going to do about it. However, though, the Americans were invited to lunch with the British officer. Skinner, in his official capacity of prisoner exchange agent, had met the British officers many times before. So he had already been around them a few times. They had already kicked it, right? As lunch was being served, the officers started to talk amongst themselves. Stay right there, because I got to play a quick commercial. I'll be right back. I promise I'll be right back. This story is getting deeper and deeper, and we need to be a part of it. Be right back.
Want last-minute brand design help? Get top-tier Fiverr freelance creatives at your fingertips fast with secure payments and 24/7 support. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
All right, I'm back. So now the British troops are talking. They're like, you know what? We don't like what's going on here. Let's converse and talk about what's happening right here, so we can make some decisions. So Skinner and Admiral Edward Codrington got in a heated discussion over the fact that Skinner's house had been burned by the British 3 weeks before. So that was already some stuff. It was a lot going.
Want last minute?
I'm sorry. My apologies. Yeah, but that was a lot going on. Skinner's house had already been burned. And I feel like they felt in their minds like, we can't trust this guy. You feel me? We trying to come over here and take over stuff. We really can't trust this guy no further than we can throw him. And there was also an army officer at the lunch who Skinner had previously met. he was surprised to discover that he was General Ross. Now, Ross invited Skinner back to his cabin and told him that Dr. Beans was no gentleman. Because, you know, like back then, that was like saying Dr. Beans is a punk bitch. He a traitor and he's a punk ass bitch, and no, we ain't here for him. You know, he's not giving loyalty, right? So that's what, you know, Ross and Skinner had discussed. He's no gentleman and should be released, not be released for any reason. But Ross is like, he had read some letters from the British prisoners and his officers stating that the great treatment that he had been given. He had given Ross's soldiers. Beans had took care of Ross's soldiers. So how is he not a gentleman? And your own people, your own troops are saying, this dude helped us out when we were injured because we was over there trying to take over some stuff. Ross expressed his relief and gratitude about the kind of treatment his men had received, and stated that the reason and no other he should consent to the release. For that reason and no other, he should. All right, I'm gonna let him go. You feel me? Because he did take care of my peoples in a time where they was going through some things. So for this reason alone, I'm going to go ahead and release him. After his meeting with Ross, Skinner returned to tell Key that Dr. Beans would be released, right? So he like, listen, Key, guess Francis. They're going to let him go. Admiral Cochrane told Skinner and Key that with so many officers from other ships aboard the Tana planning to attack Baltimore, there was no room for the Americans to remain on board. So they're like, y'all gotta go. Y'all gotta get off the ship right now. The three Americans, Key, Beans, and Skinner, and the remainder of the crew from the truce vessel were then transferred to a 38-gun ship called the HMS Surprise. Oh, surprise! The fourth ship was then tied to the Surprise and followed up the bay with the fleet of up the Patapsco River. So now they tied to the other ship because they was like, we can't have you on the ship. We got things we got to do. We trying to retake over America, and y'all in the way, right? So sorry, y'all. They just said they in the way. You gotta get off my ship. I got stuff to do. So as the British fleet reached the mouth, hold on, you say y'all gotta go. Like, y'all gotta get off my shit. Like, y'all gotta go. So as the British reached the mouth of the Patapsco River, Skinner suggested that Admiral Cochrane to Admiral Cochrane that since they were non-combatant, so close to the city, he would let them return to Baltimore. So they weren't trying to fight. They weren't trying to come and stop the British from doing what they was trying to do. So they could go back to Baltimore. We don't care about that. Go ahead back to Baltimore. So Cochrane told him that since the British officers had freely discussed the attack in front of Skinner and the others, that they could not let them go into Baltimore and risk informing the defenders of Baltimore of the British plans. So the Americans would be detained until the British had taken over the city. So no, we're not going to let them go into the city yet, because they know what we're planning to do. They know what we got on our agenda, and they're going to go back and they're going to tell everybody. And then by the time we get in there, they're going to be ready to go and ready for war. They know we was already ready for war. So the Americans would be detained until the British had taken the city. Skinner then asked to be transferred back to their own ship so that they would not have to watch the attack from the deck of the British warship. Cochrane agreed to let them to this, but also sent a detachment of royal troops. So they're not playing. So they weren't. I don't think that they were stupid. They knew what was going on. So they also decided to send some guards, so to speak, with them. The Potemkin code where the Skinner suggested to the okay, so like he's like, yeah, I'm gonna let you go up there, right? Let me make sure we good because there's some notes I got and I need to. Okay. Yeah, so he sent the royal troops, some royal marines with him. Like, nah, y'all not going up there by yourselves. We want to make sure that they watch y'all so that y'all don't go and spill the beans that we on our way and we about to do some stuff, right? And he wanted to make sure they wouldn't escape. So returning to their ship, the Americans were reluctantly settled in to watch the British attack proceed, helpless to provide any warning to the city in front of them, Baltimore. They can't tell them nothing. So now the British is ready to attack Fort McHenry. They ready on our side. So the British land stalled north and east of the city by defenses dug by the citizens, because I told y'all everybody had to help. Everybody was trying to defend the city. There were about 15,000 troops. Eyes were turned to the British Navy. If the Navy would be able to sail into Baltimore Harbor, land forces could be reinforced by naval guns bombarding the American city or the defenses. So even the city itself. So standing between the British Navy and the city of Baltimore were the defenses of Fort McHenry and its 1,000 American defenders. To dislodge the defenders from the fort, one of the longest bombardments of American history would commence. It would happen. It would go down. With the fate of the city and perhaps the nation at stake. Like they didn't know what was getting ready to happen. They didn't know. But guess what? Baltimore was safe. Yes, it was, honey. Yes, it was. It was safe. So when the bombing of Fort McHenry finally stopped early the morning of September the 15th, 1814, not everyone knew that what the outcome was. 2 miles from the fort, the truce ship, the Stephen Decatur was still tethered to Cochrane's temporary command ship, and the ship. You remember the HMS Surprise? Francis Scott Key, John Skinner, and Dr. Baines all watched the attack from the deck of the Stephen Decatur. And once the firing stopped, they waited to see if it was going to jump back off again. They waited. They was like, we don't know what's going to happen. So when it did not, the Americans were trying to figure out why the British had stopped firing. What did it mean? Like, had the fort and the city been surrendered? You don't know us so well. So the garrison flag, that's the flag that y'all know today. Well, not. Yeah, it's the flag. We'll get to that. For nearly 90 minutes, the Americans on the truce ship were waiting anxiously. They wanted to know what was going on. They were waiting anxiously for an answer. They could tell that the British ships were preparing to sail. But the sail, where were they going? Like, where were they going? So back down the Patapsco towards the fleet, or up the Patapsco into the city. Like, what direction were they going to go in? Key and Skinner kept looking through spyglass, because that was big back then. You look through it and see what's going on, because you could see everything, right? To see if the flag was still on the pole, and if so, was the whose flag was it? Was the British flag or was it the American flag, right? Was it the same one that they had been? That they had placed there the night before. Instead, the fort of men, inside the fort of men of the garrison, were also wondering why the British ceased fire. The men on the ramparts kept a sharp eye on the ships, ready to open fire if they needed to. If the British started deciding that they wanted to come towards the city. Major Armistead was receiving reports from the garrison about any damage to the fort, the number of casualties, and what the British ships were doing. So all of this coming together. Just before 9 a.m., Armistead ordered the storm flag taken down. The same flag that Key had seen at the Twilight's last gleaming. You know, at Twilight's last game. Yeah, that flag. Same flag. By now, the flag was hanging limp against the flagpole. Happy from all of the rain, because it's rainy season. I told y'all this was going down in September. It's raining. And that happens here a lot. And September is usually a rainy season. Absorbed by the wool. Following the Army regulation at 9 a.m., Armstead ordered the garrison flag to raise. The garrison's fife and drums, joined by musicians of the Maryland militia, played the national air Yankee Doodle because at the time that was like the song. That was like maybe the national anthem back then, while the large wool 30 by 42 garrison flag was hoisted. Honey. So that's the flag that Francis was talking about in the song. That's the flag. So yeah, they put it back up. As the flag rose to the top of the flagpole, the sun broke through the clouds, shining into the flag. Aboard the Stephen Decatur, Skinner, Baines, and Key, watching through a spyglass, saw the large 30 by 42 flag reflected in the sunlight, waving over the ramparts of Fort McHenry. They were elated. They were happy as shit, excuse my language, that the fort was still held by the Americans. So if you know the story of, the whole song, Francis Scott Key and all of that. So at this time, everybody knows. I'm not going to keep going into all the story. I just wanted to give y'all a little bit of information about what was going on at that time, what was happening. So the end of the war, the outcome of the Battle of Baltimore was that the city was saved, having avoided the occupation of the invading forces of who probably would have set the warehouses and burnt the city down. We would have had the same fate that they had in Washington, D.C. at the time. But because they fought hard, and here they fought hard in New York, they fought hard in so many different places at this one time, because remember, the British were attacking from all kinds of places. It didn't go down, and the war subsided, and everything, I don't know about good, but everything went the way it was supposed to go. I love this, hearing this particular piece of history when it comes to this city, because like I told y'all, my city has a lot of history when it comes to this country and the things that go down in this country. One standpoint I have is this, that they talk about how violent the city is now, but my standpoint is the city has been violent. A lot of guns and cannons and things have gone off in the city for a very, very long time. It has, and that's the truth. But my other standpoint is this: for those who live here, recognize where you live and where you come from. It's a lot of history here. I don't care what race you are. It's a lot of history here. And as we go along there, I will divulge a lot of that history. But in my mind, you should just take better care of the city, because it is a lot of history in the city. Black history, Jewish history. It's just a lot of history here. It's that race does not matter. History matters, and it's a lot here. So love your city a little bit more. I love it. I can't wait to tell you more stories about it. I can't wait to go into other stories, because it's other things. I'm going to get into the Civil War too. Trust me. But there's other things that, we could take away from these lessons and how we move today. So, with that being said, you guys are amazing. Thank you for tuning in to Hood History. Yes, we love telling history, telling about the historical things that happen in this country and other countries. And we will be covering a long list of countries. But thank you for tuning in. And I got to get out of here. But I love you guys very much. And make sure you tune in for Media Monday. It's coming. Media Monday. This Monday. And with that being said, I gotta go. Bye, y'all. Love y'all. Bye.